My name is Steve. We started selling handkerchiefs and linens online back in 2007. The reason we started the store is because my wife wanted to quit her job, and we live in an area that's pretty pricey. So at the time, she was making six figures. We looked all over the place for other opportunities, and then finally stumbled upon e-commerce. Reason why we decided to sell handkerchiefs is because when we got married, we looked all over the place for handkerchiefs, couldn't find any except for this factory in China. And so we imported a bunch of these hankies, used maybe a handful of them and sold the rest on eBay, and they sold like hotcakes. And so we got back in touch with that vendor. It ended up making $100,000 in profit in its first year, and today it is a seven-figure business. And I also write about e-commerce on my blog, and that has allowed me to have the opportunity of vendors contacting me with their tools and whatnot, which I actually try out on my store. The store is kind of like a guinea pig, and then I report on the blog and YouTube. I would say the biggest benefits are that you are creating a business that doesn't take as much time, that has a lot of value, and it's a business that you can eventually sell at a pretty decent multiple. The reason why we started it when my wife was pregnant with our first child is because e-commerce allows you to time shift your time working on the business. And if you decide to sell on Amazon, for example, where the fulfillment is taken care of for you, you can literally run a multi-million dollar business with just a handful of people, which is unheard of in other industries. Yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is that you have to deal with inventory. Thanks to what are called 3PLs, these are called third-party logistics firms. There's actually a bunch of places around the world that will store and ship your inventory for you. So you can easily use a 3PL to store your inventory. You can use Amazon FBA. This is where Amazon does the fulfillment for you. Or you can even consider doing drop shipping. Drop shipping is where you take orders, but then your supplier is responsible for delivering those products to the end customer. There's a number of mistakes across the different stages of the business. I would say if you're just starting out, the biggest mistake is not validating your product and ordering a big shipment without knowing that it's going to sell, or without having a high confidence that it's going to sell. Another mistake I see when dealing with suppliers, especially overseas, is not getting an inspector. Like, just because you get a sample that looks great and you place your first bulk order, it doesn't mean that the bulk order items are going to look exactly like the sample. You have to get it inspected over there just to make sure. Don't be too trusting of anyone, especially early on. Now, when you're established, ironically, the biggest mistake I see is people trying to scale too quickly. Once you start making a lot of money, you kind of get drunk on that, and you start trying all sorts of different tactics to get additional business because you want to grow. But the best way to proceed once you're kind of more established is just double down on what's working and only expand once you've kind of tapped out on whatever's already working again. Growing too fast is actually a big problem because, and I've fallen into this trap in the past. When you try to grow too fast, you end up taking some unnecessary risks and you end up squandering some money. So just double down on what it's already working. A research tool like Jungle Scout or Helium 10 is essential, mainly because you get data, and that will give you, data that will allow you to make informed decisions on what to sell, how to create your listing, what keywords people are searching for, and whatnot. Now, outside of Amazon with your own store, these are the essentials. An email marketing tool, I use Klaviyo. An SMS marketing tool, I use PostScript for that. Basically, the goal with your own business, of course, is to build your own customer base, build your brand. And the only way you can build your brand is by bringing people back to your site over and over and over again so that, your name becomes kind of like a household name. So it's an email, SMS. I like to use Messenger also. That's like another tool that allows you to just kind of manage communications on Messenger. And outside of that, in terms of apps, as you can probably tell, I'm not actually a huge app lover. Like, I try to actually use as few apps as possible to keep expenses down. And every app that you install is actually another point of failure. I would say those are like the main ones. Now, once you start branching out a little bit, there's other apps that you can use to improve your business, but those are the core ones that I think every single business should have. The biggest thing that you can do really is to redesign your website for conversions. I'll give you a couple rules that I follow. Every single page on your website should just have one objective and one objective only. So for example, on your homepage, that one objective should be to click to view a list of products. On your product page, the only objective should be to click on the add to cart button. On the shopping cart page, the only objective should be to go to checkout. If you design your site in a way that funnels people to a single objective, that will drastically improve your conversion rate. Now, in Amazon land, it's really about the images and your copy. So, I mean, these are all skills that are acquired over time, but your images have to be great. When someone's shopping online, there's no other way for them to judge your product except for the images. So, take multiple images at different angles. What else improves the conversion rate? Trust seals during checkout, testimonials, anything that provides some amount of social proof for whatever you sell will also improve your conversion rate. Those are probably the primary things. I would say the biggest challenge for the past couple of years has been the supply chain. Due to COVID, it's been really hard to get products in. I think it's eased up this year, it's ironic because we actually didn't have any problems getting product during the pandemic, but this year we're actually having some problems. So there's still different, depending on what you sell, there's different uh, challenges that you have. The other challenge right now is inflation. All of the suppliers are raising their prices, which has, I guess maybe this isn't a problem because then you in turn raise your own prices. But just generally, people are, because we're kind of in the midst of a recession right now, you're forced to raise prices. And so just the pricing has been a little bit challenging. And also, especially, I can say this on Amazon, it's become a lot more competitive over the years, mainly because Amazon has been courting all these Chinese sellers. The platform's actually flooded with all these copycats now. I think I started all of my businesses during the recessions. And the recession is actually a great time to start because ironically, there's not as much competition, pricing can be lower, people are a little bit more reluctant to start something, which kind of gives you an advantage. What I will say is that if you're going to start during the recession, make sure you keep an eye on your costs. Try to eliminate any unnecessary costs when you start. And all you have to do is basically weather the storm. And the fact that you started during the recession means that you'll be a lot more powerful once the economy does improve. Not everyone is using, or not a whole lot of people are using, which is content marketing. When it comes to selling online and building your brand, what you want to do is you want to build an audience, right? And the best way to build an audience is to create content that resonates with that audience. So for example, let's say I sell fishing t-shirts, right? What I want to do is I want to write content that fishermen love to read. And so that way I have an audience of fishermen that I can market my products to. There is like advertising and all that, but I mean, fundamentally, you need a long-term or a consistent way of bringing in traffic. And I'd say content is probably the best strategy for that. You need to be writing content and you need to be building a list of some sort, whether that be email or SMS. You need a way to be able to bring people back. And one thing that I focus on with my store is the lifetime value of a customer. So once I get that customer in the door, I'm constantly contacting them on at least a weekly basis, cross-selling them different items that are related to what they bought. Someone who has bought in your store is 65% more likely to buy again. And so once you have that customer, you want to keep them in your database. This is incidentally why selling on Amazon isn't great. You get that one sale and you don't have any information and you're done right there. But with a store, you can continually sell to that same person. We have customers who have purchased with us consistently and in quantity for like the last 5 to 7 years. And those customers are very valuable. All you actually need is a handful of those, and you can create a 6-figure business just right off the bat. If you collect more of those and do all the other things, you can easily make a 7-figure business. And if you expand and try to scale, you can easily create an 8-figure business using those strategies. I teach a class of over 5,000 people, and everyone has like different hangups when it comes to product selection. The best way really is to pick a product to sell that you have some expertise in, or you have some sort of problem that you're experiencing. Obviously, we did the latter, but there are people in my class that just go based on their skills. Let me just give you a quick example. So I play ultimate frisbee. So I know that when I play at night, my hands get cold. So maybe I'd want to invent some gloves for that. So that's the best way to do it. There's a lot of people who, have like writer's block, or maybe writer's block isn't the right term, but they can't think of anything to sell. That's when tools come in. So there's this tool called Jungle Scout that literally scrapes every single listing on Amazon and tells you approximately how much each listing makes. And by querying this database, you can say, hey, give me a product that makes at least $5,000 a month, has less than like 2,000 people selling it, and less than 100 reviews. And that database will spit out products to you that meet that criteria. And then you can go through those products and pick ones that you might potentially want to sell or add value to. So there's two different ways to do it. One, if you can't think of anything, and the other way is, if you just look at your own problems and what your own needs are. I like to track average order value, and I also like to track the repeat customer rate. And I'll give you some stats from my store. So our average order value is about $60. And I was just looking at the breakdown of this average order value with our store, and I noticed that 46% of those people spend less than half of our average order value, whereas 10% of our customers spend more than double our average order value. All right. So that's from just a pure order standpoint. But if you look at it from a revenue standpoint, those 10% that spend over twice our average order value actually make up almost 50% of our sales. Whereas those people, the bulk of our customers who spend less than half of our AOV, actually only make up like 12% of our sales. I don't remember if I'm getting the numbers exactly right, but that's approximately what it is. And so when I did that analysis, I was like, why am I focusing on these guys who don't spend that much money? I should be focusing on the big guys. And in our case, for our store, those big guys are wedding and event planners. So now we look for large orders, and whenever there's a large order, we actually call them and say, hey, are you a planner? And then we give them a special coupon code and a dedicated rep, and they come buy from us, for an extended period. The other thing I noticed is that a lot of those cheapy customers, I should say, were coming from Facebook, whereas all of like the bigger customers were coming from Google. So over the years, we've kind of de-emphasized Facebook advertising because it doesn't bring in as good of a quality of a customer.